Um, I am going to be talking about our experience transitioning to Hyrax 5 with Valkyrie and Fedora 6. Um, I'm Emily Porter. I'm the repository program manager at the Emory University Libraries and Museums. So first, I would like to send my appreciation both to the Sirenia Docker image and also express my love for manatees in general. So I think this may have been Daniel Pierce who named this particular flavor of Hyrax 5, but thank you for that. It cheers me up whenever I think about Sirenias. So I'm going to start off with a little bit of background and context. We have been using Fedora for a long time, longer than we've been using Samvera. Um, So we are currently running three different versions of Fedora. And as you can imagine, that's quite a bit to keep up with. Our Fedora 3 environment involves what we call our legacy applications. And this is a locally developed non-Samvera framework. We have considerable amount of content in this environment right now. We also have a Fedora 4 infrastructure with two Hyrax applications. One is hosted by our vendor, DCE, and one is one that we locally maintain. There's also quite a bit of content here. And we are making our first big leap to take one of our legacy collections, which is our Open Emory repository. And this consists of a fairly sizable amount of open access publications, and we're moving this all the way from Fedora 3 non-Samvera up to Fedora 6 with Hyrax 5 and Valkyrie. So I'm going to talk a little bit about our approach for migration. I guess we could call this a greenfield approach, but we have been working on this for a little over a year now. So we started in early 2024. So we kind of went through the process of setting up a brand new Hyrax 5 and Valkyrie application based on the Sirenia Docker image using Fedora 6 as the backend. We configured our local data model, various customizations related to the work type. And then we built a process to export selected data files. And I say selected because we're not exporting every single data stream that's stored in Fedora 3. And we're doing this using the Fedora 3 export API. We then have a process that extracts selected metadata from those XML files. In particular, mods is the descriptive schema in that environment, and there's some other pieces of XML-based metadata that we have to pull out from other files as well. We then have a script that transforms that extracted metadata into CSVs that we can use for bulk racks. So similar to what we just heard from Georgetown there. And we've been loading our data in batches of 1,000 works at a time. So a typical batch is 1,000 works and 8,000 files. So I want to mention some risks and complications. A lot of this has to do with the timing of when we started this effort. So I think the version that we started with initially was a release candidate. Um, we are on version 5.0.1 right now. We are not yet on 5.1, which was recently released for Hyrax. And throughout this process, we've been working in parallel with the Hyrax and Fedora 6 working group, which has been really helpful. Another kind of risk for us is that we're depositing all of these 34,000 publications into a single Hyrax collection. And I've been keeping a very close eye on this because it was a significant performance issue for us in our Hyrax 3 and Fedora 4 environment. We noticed extreme performance issues start to show up if a single collection contained over 5,000 works. Also, because we're using brand new versions of everything, we have found that there are some things in the current version of uh, bulk racks with Valkyrie support that aren't quite there yet. Um, One thing being that individual file set rows in a CSV are not yet supported. We've had to make some other tweaks as well. Some of those are just, due to our local customizations. Virus scanning and fixity checking, uh, these were not supported at the time we started. Also, some challenges with utilizing our own Emory defined identifier scheme that we use for persistent URLs and that sort of thing. Um, I won't get too far into this because I could spend probably a couple hours talking about each of these bullet points, but one reason that we were very excited to move to Fedora 6 is that it provides us with OCFL, so in the storage environment. But the way this happens from Hyrax into Fedora 6 and OCFL is maybe not quite optimal, but it's still a great leap forward for us in terms of preservation. Um, and also pear tree support. So pear tree was definitely recommended within kind of the Fedora 7 and Hyrax environment for performance reasons. This wasn't fully supported at the time we started our efforts, and we kind of waited for a while and talked to a lot of folks about it. Um, Thought about it a lot, and we've opted to proceed without it. Um, so far, knock on wood, it's been okay. Hasn't been an issue. The other thing that we've talked about with the Fedora team is understanding kind of the fact that OCFL um, objects in storage are already pair treed in that environment. And our understanding is that kind of the indexing of Fedora 6 is a lot more optimal than it used to be in Fedora 4. So I'll talk a little bit about performance. Um, so far, it's been solid. I talked about that kind of typical batch of 1,000 works and 8,000 files. That takes about 23 hours. We're still trying to fine tune our, uh, cloud environments, Sidekick, background jobs, all these things. But the persistence itself is pretty fast. So meaning getting the data populated into Fedora is very solid. Um, I also just wanted to mention we're part of the Hyrax Fedora 6 working group. We documented some of our prior pain points that we'd encountered with active Fedora and Fedora 4 ingest. So I'm going to give a little bit of an apples to oranges comparison here. When we first started migrating data into a brand new Hyrax 3 and Fedora 4.7 application, it took us about 11 months of pretty much continuous ingests to ingest about 13,000 works. And by comparison, with our new kind of Sirenia approach, we've been able to load in 3 months, doing ingest usually about twice a week, um, close to 22,000. So it's definitely a lot faster. Again, we're hoping to kind of, part of the reasons we can't do continuous ingest is because of the export time and the QA time and just basically human coordination factors. So I wanted to mention a little bit, and I hope to follow up with the bulk racks team at some point in the future. We've just been really busy trying to get our migration done. But it's kind of a breakdown of the error reporting that we see. That's been another interesting thing about moving into Valkyrie and bulk racks is we see, we don't see a lot of errors showing up in Sidekick, which is historically what we would normally look at. So largely relying on the Bulkrax interface to report things to us. Um, we have seen some issues related to the create relationships job. I won't get into that for time's sake, but that's kind of what that thing at the top that says Bulkrax pending relationship. Um, Frozen errors, these are unfortunately the most common, and they also tend to be the most significant. So when we encounter one of those, it often means that either the work did not get created or the file sets did not get created. So that's typically a situation where we'll have to go in and delete whatever remnants of that ingest were and recreate it. We also occasionally see these Valkyrie persistent stale object errors. Um, when I go back and manually kind of go through the QA process and look at them, they tend to be okay. Um, Not too many issues there. And in general, when we do these batches of 1,000 works at a time, the average error rate is usually about 3%. So it's not terrible. Um, we're just always kind of trying to streamline our QA process to make that faster. So I've got a few minutes, and I thought I would just talk about some features and customizations. And so again, we have experience with Hyrax, and we've customized our Hyrax 3 application. In some cases, with this brand new application, we're either recreating some of our prior customizations um, in the new version of Hyrax, Valkyrie, Fedora. And in some cases, we had to add some brand new features specifically for the material that we're ingesting. Um, so I think one thing I did want to mention, and it's interesting because after hearing what Georgetown was describing, our particular strategy has been to try to consolidate work types as much as possible, just for kind of long-term maintenance reasons. So what we've done is, given that this collection that we're migrating consists all of institutional repository, um, Emory University scholarship publications, we've built a single work type with a really souped up form. That's how I would professionally describe it. That supports subtypes. So the metadata is all very similar. We have one very large metadata profile, but the form itself does validation, so someone could select a subtype of publication, and then the form will kind of switch out the display of the fields and perform additional validation as needed. We've built a customized deposit approval workflow. I mentioned our local metadata profile already. Also persistent URLs using our Emory defined ID scheme. We've also built out and recreated our local preservation events and audit trails. This is important to our preservation strategy, so we're trying to capture information about critical activities that happen during ingest and also after the fact. We've done work with our citation tools. We configured an RIS export. We found that RIS is just kind of more general purpose and reliable. We've also done some work to make sure that Zotero embedded metadata was working as we expected. And we have also implemented a PDF viewer. So it's great to hear Georgetown talking about that. We've looked at, I think, what Lafayette College and also what Haiku has done with that, and that's been really helpful. We were happy to see that we could get full text search working both within the PDF viewer, but also kind of repository wide. We've been doing some work around Google Scholar and also making sure that we could re-enable the functionality of kind of on-demand fixed date checking in the Hyrax UI. And we've done a lot of UI and styling work. One thing that we're still kind of in a holding pattern about is really we would love to have that kind of final integration of the Hyrax UI integrating with analytics. So it'd be lovely to go to an individual work, see downloads related to that. But we are happy to see all the custom events are firing off if I go to Google Analytics directly. So we know it's there. So I only have a couple of minutes, so I'll be very fast here. But some things we really like about Fedora 6, in addition to performance and stability, they have a really nice statistics tool, which is the small truncated screenshot I've got up in the upper left corner. But this allows me to go into the Fedora UI and see the overall resource count within Fedora. So as you can see, we are already almost 1.3 million Fedora resources. Um, I can also see things like how many actual binary files we have. I can see the total file size of all those binaries on disk. I'm kind of in the middle screenshot here is what just a quick snippet of what an OCLFL object looks like. So I can navigate into our S3 storage environment, go in and look at the OCFL object directly. And we love the fact that the metadata and the content files are all in the same storage environment. We are also starting to work with the Camel toolbox within Fedora 6. And this is already, we've already tested this out, but this has really saved us a lot of time. We knew we would have to do something different with kind of doing repository-wide fixity checking. But given the complexity in the number of files that are part of an OCFL object, we really wanted to focus on fixity checking just the binary content files only. And so this is looking really good so far. So I wanted to mention I've got some additional slides with screenshots at the end of the presentation because I figured I wouldn't have time to go through all of it. But I've added some links here. Here we are on GitHub. I also wrote a blog post, which is on the Fedora site, which gets a little more into some of our implementation. And then I also have linked to another presentation that we gave past fall. So thank you all very much. I will try to catch up if there are any questions in Slack or in the chat. But I'm on the Samvera Slack and also Fedora Slack. And I would like to say thank you to the Emory teams, the many people I work with who have done a tremendous amount of heavy lifting. And thank you to our scholarly communications office for their patience as we do all this because this is their collection. And thank you also to the Samvera and Fedora teams. A lot of people have helped us along the way, and we're really appreciative for your work. Sorry, is there a... Oh, sorry. Yeah, I saw the last question in the chat. And I can share the deck as well.